All right, our frank talk with Floyd Shivambu continues here on Your View, coming to you live from Linden here in Johannesburg. Smega in Kagiso, good evening to you.
Hi, JJ.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Go for it, go for it.
Okay, this is my question.
Yes.
Floyd, how are you?
I'm fine, and you?
Good. EFF is claiming to be bring radical transformation when they're in government, right? And I'm saying to them, they can pilot what they're saying they're going to bring when they're in government. I'll give an example. They've got over 600,000 members, right? They can actually take that membership and pilot a bank that will be belonging to EFF, right? They can pilot that system within their party. Why don't they do it? And number two, EFF with what they have now, they can either blackmail ANC or blackmail DA for one or two municipalities. And in that local municipalities, they can pilot whatever the system of government they're saying they're going to bring. If they're saying they'll be radical enough, they can take one local or one of the two metros. They can take either Joburg or take Pretoria and pilot the system that they're saying they're going to bring about when they're in government. Why don't they do that now? They've got 600,000 membership. Why can't they do that?
All right, Smega, stay on the line quickly. Quick response there, Floyd.
Look, we can listen to a believable and practical proposal that says that let us create a cooperative bank that will be about EFF members. Yeah. But if you are saying a bank, the laws that govern banks now are prohibitive of new banks. That is why you do not have new banks. It's just dominance of 4 or 5 banks. Yes. Which are owned by the establishment. So like to get a banking license, for instance, you need 250 million unencumbered. And there's only one black person who has got that money in South Africa and has got a banking license. The rest of us will never have 250 million unencumbered amount, which is not there. So it's one of the issues that, of course, must be looked into. And if you operate a cooperative bank, there is no proper regulatory mechanisms to safeguard the interest of the depositors and everything. All right, and then the municipality, in terms of the municipalities, we are fielding a mayor candidate in Tshwane. It's not a secret. Like
oh no, you're going to give Tshwane to the ANC also now.
We are going to field a mayor candidate in Tshwane once we've removed the speaker and the mayor.
But you do realize with the Joburg experience that is handing it to the ANC in a platter.
I think it's far much more sophisticated and complex than that. It's not as simplistic as you think.
No, convince me. Are you saying you can end up with an EFF mayor in Tshwane?
We will end up with an EFF mayor in Tshwane.
Okay, we'll hold you to that. Smega,
JJ,
your last bite.
Yeah, let me do a follow-up. I'm saying to Floyd, and I'll be honest with this, not in a bad way.
Yeah.
EFF operates like a church. All their members are kind of zombified, which is a good thing.
Why would you say that?
They listen to their leadership, right?
Are you saying other parties don't listen to their leaders?
Huh?
Are you saying other parties don't listen to their leaders?
No, other parties do, but in their situation, it's very different. Like they are kind of they're kind of zombified. So I'm saying that that's a good thing. To have something good going on. I'm saying with 600,000 members, if they can play with gas, that 250 million they're talking about, they can raise it within 3 months with the kind of membership they can have their own bank.
All right, Smega, we're going to have to leave it there. But Floyd, briefly, I mean, forget about the dramatics of Smega, but the issue of internal democracy always comes up. The issue of a cult issue always comes up. And you dismiss the issue of a slave, but it came up. There was Amapiano and something else, etc. So it's not like it's fabrication or it's a figment of people's imagination that there may indeed be factions that resulted in some slate of some sort. And we know that these things are never formal. No party will come out and say, oh, we have factions in our party.
Do you know, prior to the National People's Assembly, we had 50 regional people's assemblies, which are elective conferences at the regional level, and 9 provincial people's assemblies, which elect leadership at provincial level. then almost all of them were contested. If the organization was not democratic, we could have just, as the leadership, announced that in Mpumalanga, Collins Dibe are going to be chairperson. In Limpopo, Jesu Butani are going to be chairperson.
So there's healthy contestation, that's what you're saying.
There is robust contestation in the EFF of ideas and of leadership positions. But we are guided by democratic centralism. You cannot have an organization that can survive without democratic centralism. What is democratic centralism? It is to say that all of us, let us contribute in the ideas, but once decisions have been taken, your right to disagree dwindles into insignificance.
But is there debate about...
There is debate about everything.
No, I'm talking about some issue of cult personality and the worry about that centralism that sometimes may border on some sort of a dictatorship of the popular.
There's no personality cult in the EFF. You know cults, right?
Yeah.
Cults, you find people even print photos of their leader and put in their walls and print T-shirts of the organizations with their leaders. Have you ever seen an EFF T-shirt with a face?
I've seen a billboard say "Son of the Soil."
In terms of elections, that is relevant. Because he is the one who's going to appear on a ballot paper. But we have never reproduced material as the EFF that says that this is the leader, we pray in front of the commander-in-chief and everything else there. It happens elsewhere, not in the economic freedom fighters. There's no cult of leadership.
So there's no worry at all about a possible cult. The matter has never arisen in a proper debate inside.
There's no cult, none whatsoever in the economic freedom fighters. And even the minor issues the minor areas where we use the image of the president, there's no any other political party that doesn't do that in South Africa. We actually do it in a minimal way because we do not print T-shirts with his photo. We do not do all these things which other political parties are doing. Musimaiman was when he was still a political leader. He was in the face of, he was in the T-shirts of the DA and Ramaphosa. He has never been called a cult, but he's in T-shirts. Too many songs about him. And all sorts of things which do not acknowledge the real owners of the ANC who gave him money to win conference.
Boy, good evening. Oh, we lost Boy. We lost Boy. All right. So let's get on to, and it's somehow related to, the nervousness of people. And when your CSC was here, I asked the question, about media freedom. And I think you are the most relevant because I remember you having been in charge of propaganda in your early days, right? And you guys, less than 10 years ago, you believed in something called the media tribunal. You are big champions of it, and it was like, and when you were speaking, it was like it was going to happen next week. It was not like, oh, it will happen in the future, right? Have you changed your mind, right? Just philosophically speaking, about how a government must relate to the fourth estate?
No, I don't think you read our participation on that question closely. Even when we were leading the ANC clique, you never show me a single sentence of the ANC clique that says that we support a media tribunal. No way. In our time of leadership.
I can't show it to you now, but I suspect I can find it and forward it to you tomorrow.
Because we're responsible for that communication platform. It was advocated in the ANC, and then they created, they said that they must have a parallel newspaper, and then they created New Age and all of those things that they got to happen there. And in most instances, we were saying that let them say whatever they want to say, but we must also have the right of association and disassociation. And it's not for the first time, by the way. It is not only now. It has been like that throughout, to say that if we know that you're carrying an agenda, a narrow agenda to fight against what we stand for, and you are not an objective media, we isolate you, we do not engage with you. And that is a fair and democratic principle that should guide all of us, that if
But you realize that as a party of government, if you're in government, that would mean that then you are refusing to account to certain citizens who organize themselves in a particular way under media, whether they agree with you or not. Would you, in other words, if you are a government tomorrow, right, and then you held a media briefing, you then ask Daily Maverick not to come there because they have a bone to chew with you?
Look, our view, which is correct now, is that there are a lot of people who call themselves media and they're not media.
Daily Maverick is not media.
Yeah, they're just hunting dogs of certain establishments. The Daily Maverick is an establishment that is funded by the cabal and the rogue unit and by reactionary global forces, George Soros, whose agenda.
Have you taken down your column there?
In terms of...
you have a column in Daily Maverick. Have you taken it down?
I don't have a column. What I do...
Opinionista.
Yeah, what I do is I write opinion pieces and I publish in a blog which is called after my name.
Yeah.
And then I send...
It's on the Daily Maverick.
And I send it to different platforms, to Politics Web, to different platforms.
Yeah.
So whoever publishes, as long
but surely as your right of association, by now you should have disassociated with them.
As long as it is published. And since we have taken a decision, we no longer include them in our mailing list
published
in terms of whatever. So we've never published
So you want them to take down your column?
In terms of those issues. I honestly do not care what they do with that content because the more people read what we have written, the better, because we are seeking to persuade as many people as possible. So whichever platform they find it.
Did you think the ENCA had a point to stand in solidarity with so many of the publications that you disallowed to come to your conference? Report, amongst others, Daily Maverick, and I think there were some Media 24 people there, etc., etc. Do you think they had a point in saying, let's not have a situation where, we have a future where if you say something critical of the EFF, you may end up being banned from coming to their conferences?
You say ENCA or ANC?
No, ENCA, man, not ANC. ENCA.
ENCA, ENCA, Mr. Rahman, the head of news, was that fool who were the political party who contested against the EFF in the 2019 elections. He had a party, was on a ballot paper with the party called Capitalist Parties and People Cow nonsense, right? And then he was defeated by the EFF, he didn't get anything. And then he was having a vendetta. And you must remember that decision was taken even before they came to the National People's Assembly. Yeah. All other television stations, yourselves, SABC, got places to establish their broadcasting centers.
Yes.
The ENCA didn't do that because they thought that their dramatic withdrawal is going to cause some uproar. And because the God that we save is so great, less than 2 weeks after that, he fell on his own sword. Yeah. His own colleagues turned against him, and then he was humiliated and was exposed as a politically conflicted news operator who was operating a political party through ENCA. And I think we must dignify such kind of people.
Are you going to go on ENCA?
But look, we have dealt with that already. We did say, once they withdrew, that you have already defined yourselves outside.
So you'll never appear on ENCA again?
We are not participating in ENCA platforms, and that is a decision that we have taken when we have communicated that publicly.
Sure. Okay. After the break, Skumbuzo is on the line to engage Floyd Shivambu some more. Let's take a break.
Must deal decisively with the illicit financial flows. We spoke about it when the president was here in the State of Nation address, that it costs in 10 years 122 billion US dollars. That is trillions of rands that are lost through the trade manipulation by multinational corporations existing here in South Africa. BHP Billiton, Lonmin, which the Comprador Deputy President is a member of, Glencore, are avoiding massive amounts of taxes here in South Africa. And if there can be adequate legislation to deal with the tax avoidance, we can assure you that annually you can collect a minimum of 100 billion rands. We have made a substantial submission as the EFF to the Portfolio Committee on Trade and Industry, to the Standing Committee on Finance, on what is to be done with regards to illicit financial flows. And we think that it's one of the most important submissions ever made in this parliament since 1994. And if it can be given proper consideration, we'll be able to move forward. Now, you will tell us, I know, about the Davis Tax Commission recommendations, the interim recommendations. There is no new recommendation which the Davis Tax Commission is making. It is cutting and pasting the OECD guidelines and methods on how to deal with illicit financial flows. Now, you please pay attention to what the countries such as Argentina, Brazil, recently Bolivia, and recently India have introduced to deal with illicit financial flows. There's a method they introduced called the sixth method, which is outside the 5 methods that are proposed by the OECD Deputy President. In that method, they said that let us tax, particularly the mineral resources, out of the publicly declared value before they leave their country, not out of what has been said are the values of those minerals when they are sold to tax havens. Because when they are sold to tax havens, they will say we sold for 2 rands, and you can only tax the 2 rand when actually the value of those minerals is 10 rands. And you're going to generate much more revenue instead of what we are currently generating.
All right, our conversation with Floyd Shivambu continues. Rounding it off now. Skumbuzo, I'm going to come to you now, but before I take that call, Floyd, that clip was almost a year ago, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it's like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's long ago.
Yes.
It's one of the State of the Nation addresses. What has happened since then? Right? Have your proposals found resonance? Have you tabled something concrete to which the ANC as a ruling party had to respond, or other parties? Just give me a sense there of what you're doing with that, because it sounds like a very important intervention that can be done in the economy. We
have tabled a private member's bill, on the anti-tax avoidance bill, which must be deliberated upon in Parliament and later on must be passed into an act of Parliament after being signed by the President.
Yeah.
But I think that the much more complex issue around this phenomenon, it's political will of the leadership. Now, it is common cause like that. Loanmen is one of the bigger tax avoiders like in South Africa. And the current president was a director of loanmen. When loanmen was shifting billions of rands to Bermuda, the current president was a chairperson of MTN when it was shifting billions of rands to tax havens.
Yeah.
Shanduka is mentioned in Paradise Papers, in Panama Papers. So we are dealing with a culprit now who must now take action to discontinue the phenomena of tax avoidance, illicit financial flows, and transfer pricing. And I doubt if there will ever be any action unless if we push far much harder than we had been doing before. So we have got a conflicted, because his friends will say that, but when we were with us here, we were doing these things together. Now we are saying that you want to change these things. Because I saw today he was saying after the Lihotla that they are going to prioritize the issue of tax avoidance. But I can tell you now that when we go to the details of what exactly should be done to decisively nip the phenomena of tax avoidance, illicit financial flows, and profit shifting, there's going to be some interventions that will complicate the whole thing with the intention of making it not to happen. Because we are dealing with culprits like who are now in political leadership in terms of the whole reality. So it's one of the issues that we have tabled the private members bill on, because one thing for sure is that the ANC will never introduce any legislation that seeks to deal with tax avoidance, because they are eating with those people who are engaged in these activities. Because it's an issue of multinational corporations taking advantage of lackluster systems in the revenue collector, in our legislation, in government, and then they declare no profit, because you can only tax profit. They declare losses, and if you were to check what are the origins of those losses, it is due to the over-exaggerated expenses. To say that, no, I've got expenses of marketing services from the Virgin Islands, from Bermuda, from Mauritius, from there and there, and then you end up not paying tax. And the crisis of all these realities, it's a fact that the entire mining sector in South Africa contributes less than 20 billion rands to the national fiscus. So if you collect taxes,
that's crazy.
It's madness. It's pure madness that the entire mining sector contributes less than 20 billion in terms of taxes. That should come from one mining company. Yeah, it should be coming from, you're correct. I mean, 20 billion cannot fund the education department of KwaZulu-Natal for 1 year only. But we are supposed to be one of the richest territories in terms of mineral resources, but we're not gaining maximum.
You are painting quite a bleak picture. Tell me something. I know even though you're in opposition, I'm sure you can be objective with me a little bit and tell me, in an entire economics cluster, who do you have time for? In the entire economic cluster, on all those ministers, Patel, this side, Tito here, Praveen, of course we already know. But in that cluster, surely there must be a bright spark somewhere that can at least hold this thing from collapsing.
Look,
the next 5 years.
I think, so we said it in one of the debates of the Standing Committee on Finance, and one of the budget votes, that what characterizes the ANC now, it's collective incompetence and cowardice. So you've got incompetent people who are also cowards. Like, even if you tell them that here's a situation, let's confront it, they won't do it. Majority of the times is because they are conflicted. Yeah. They are in the payroll.
I see there's nobody there who can save us.
There is no one. Like, Tito Mboweni is a crisis and very dangerous for South Africa in the future. Like, look into that capitalist privatization pamphlet, which he calls economic policy, which he has released. The most dangerous proposals to be ever contained in any form of economic policy, which even goes to the extent that let us privatize water provision. Like, let us do to water what we did to electricity. Like, so it's basically saying that let us cut off poor people out of water provision. So it's one of the things.
But why
crisis? And there's no one who's building confidence, because even those that surround him are not coming out with clearer alternative perspectives. They're just saying, let us proceed with what we've found here, and there won't be any direction. One day when you speak to Tito Mboweni, you must ask him what is he going to do with the debt to GDP ratio, which is now almost 70% of the GDP. Like, and
they are arguing that it compares well with economies of a similar size everywhere else.
Now, in the context of South Africa, the state has got a lot of social obligations. Like, we have to set aside a budget of about 200 billion every year
just to pay the debt.
Pay social grants. And that is equivalent to the debt servicing amounts. The equivalent of what we pay for social grants is equal to what we use to pay debt. And we need that resource for each and every little expense that is needed.
How would you do that? Like, we
can't eradicate.
But if you inherited this, what would you do? You'll answer me after Skumbuzo. Skumbuzo, good evening.
Good evening, JJ. How are you?
I'm all right. Thank you so much. You are our last caller. Go for it.
Hi, Deputy President. How are you doing?
I'm fine, and you?
Good, thanks. Deputy President, the question that I have is regarding the ruling party, coming out and releasing that public comments on Section 25 and the land amendment. And I would like the Deputy President to make comments around that, because it was released in December, and knowing that most people access internet at work, and people who are off work, and also the poor people don't have access to internet to fill in that petition and make comments. So I would like the Deputy President to make a comment around that, and also what can the party do to ensure that the poor people get to comment on such platforms or regarding the land.
Okay, Skumbuzo, thank you so much. Yes, we didn't have time to touch on the land issue, but is something going to happen in this sixth administration? We're headed for a year almost now.
We are going to amend Section 25 of South Africa's Constitution to allow for expropriation of land without compensation. And I hear the ruling party is being wishy-washy now, because they're talking about who must determine which compensation to be paid. Which compensation? Because we're saying expropriation without compensation, but already they're talking about amounts. And that is what we're dealing with in Parliament. Now, when we resumed this parliamentary term, we then re-established the ad hoc committee to amend Section 25 of the Constitution, and its due date is the 31st of March this year. That by the 31st of March, we
time to impact on
there is time. So after the public submissions, there will still be submissions in terms of the parliamentary processes, those that can physically go and make submissions, but also through the economic freedom fighters who can always give the input. We will express and represent properly when we finalize
Okay.
the amendment of Section 25 of the Constitution, so that we can take back our land and give it to all those who deserve to have the land.
What's your beef with Ndabeni Abrams? I see your very vicious statement. I assumed, right, that ministers can take their spouse or spice on trips if they are on duty. What's your beef with her? General, do you think that she's incompetent, or doesn't inspire confidence, and so it was easy for you to just come down on her on a matter that in fact is in the ministerial handbook?
No, the issue which we are raising as a concern is that if you are a minister, your spouse is not a deputy minister. It's not your extension.
Yeah.
It's you only. So if you can't now have your spouse taking government decisions, interviewing board members of SAPO and trying to make arrangements about government issues.
Yeah.
Your spouse is not you in terms of government responsibilities. So they did not say
stepped out
when she was announced as a minister, they did not say that we are now appointing Stella Ndabeni and the husband as the minister. They announced her only. She must take responsibility alone. There must not be interferences from the husband. I mean, and we of course are jealous in terms of protecting the integrity of particularly those that come from the youth movement. We like Stella, we wish her to progress.
Sure.
That is why whenever she sidesteps, we must call to order to say that govern, lead the ministry. It's an interesting age of the so-called fourth industrial revolution. Yes. But don't involve your spouse in those activities. You are more than capable without your spouse in terms of these responsibilities.
I suspected 1.5 hours was not going to be enough, but thank you so much, Floyd, for making the time. I really appreciate it, and I hope you'll be back before the end of the year.
No, that's fine. We can always engage, and thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much.
Cool.
Floyd Shivambu, the Deputy President of the EFF. Like I'm saying, not enough time to engage with the Deputy President, but of course he has agreed to come back soon, so we'll make sure that we talk to him before the end of this year.